So I just forgot to switch on this. So, however, now it's everything all right. Can you hear me from the long distance, 10 hours flight time from here to Beijing and some other countries, of course, a little bit shorter, but into Australia, there's even longer. So, however, we can communicate from long distance. This is marvelous, isn't it? So, most welcome to all of you, especially my friends from Germany, of course, local members, and then as well as from the United States and Netherlands and Switzerland, and I don't know whether other European countries, maybe some people participate to this talk. And then I'm also would like to express my welcome to my friends from Singapore, Doppelings, which is an old friend, old connected, many over 20 years connection that we have, and we have very close relationship, not only with the Dharma, but also private and personal contact is very tight. So my wife, Nora, and I myself are always happy to have a connection with all of you from our friends from Singapore. And then we met, we had a very good chance, very good opportunity to see the Chinese abbot of Avalokiteshvara monastery in mainland China, which is quite close from Beijing. And his abbot, Ji Tang, visited us in Singapore with his disciples. And today, through his leading or support, there are also quite large group of his participation or committees, as well as the monks, nuns, and other large number of lay peoples. And then with my friend, Yipu, also one of his Chinese friends in mainland, and he also organized a group. And there are another two groups from mainland China, so all in all, 4 groups from China watching to us today. So I'm very happy about that, to have you. Although I don't see any of you on screen, but maybe due to my sight also, maybe it's I cannot recognize. But anyway, I hope that you all are hearing. And some from Taiwan, then as also already Elke mentioned, from Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia, and then some other countries, maybe some from India, I don't know, it's possible. So I would like to welcome you today. And today we are trying to discuss about this book. So before I go further, so maybe I would like to also welcome you, my Chinese friend. 大家好，晚上好，好久不见，吉祥如意。今天很高兴跟大家上课交流。So now we have very good fortunate we are very fortunate to have a very good Chinese translator. She's from Taiwan, and she translated me since last 20 years. So we understand it very well because of my broken English. So she knows perfectly what I'm going to say. So without questioning, just she translated perfectly. So that's a very, very good karma for me to have such a good translator. And then also today, I think we have also a German translator, any sharing, I presume. And I don't see any from here, but somewhere in this world, he must be there, sit there and trying to understand me and explain into German. So maybe I need to explain a little bit. I need to give some background information about Lamrim. Lamrim means stages of path. Stages of path in the sense of the path that we enter, that we're going gradually, one by one. And this is actually summary practice by the great translator, great scholar and a great teacher of Atisha, Indian master Atisha. He was born in 982 and passed away 1054. He visited Tibet 1040 because of invitation by the Tibetan king, Dalai Lama, Chanchu. There were two brothers, Dalai Lama, Chanchu, and Dalai Lama Yeshiva. So at least Dalai Lama Chanchu became a monk and then very much interested to introduce pure Buddhist practice in Tibet. Of course, Buddhism was, so to say, invited in the sense of introduced in Tibet in the 8th century already. And that was during our Tibetan king, the 33rd king. Songtse Gampo was the first, introduced, connected with Buddhism. And then later, his grandchildren, now the king of Tibet, was spread Buddhism properly. As I said, King Songtse Gampo was 33rd. So therefore, I must explain a little bit further back. The first Tibetan king was, king took his kingdom in the year of 127 before Christ. So that was the first Tibetan king. And then gradually another up to the 33rd king of Songtse Gampo. So during this period, we had not Buddhism, but Pen religions. That is ancient Buddhism, ancient religion. And since 33rd, both theoretically, in fact, actually, both Pen religion and Buddhist religion or Buddhism developed side by side. Although Buddhists, many Buddhists destroyed, burned so much, very badly. So therefore, of course, Burn tradition damaged very, very much. But however, still we have Burn religion and Buddhism side by side, and Burn practice is also developing in the last some decades, very, very fast. So this was quite short information. Why Tibetan king, one of Tibetan king invited Atisha in Tibet because at that time, in Tibet, the Buddhist practice become taking very bad shape because there's two groups of Buddhists. One is only focused on the Vinaya, which means ordained group, both nun and monks. And then another part is only Tantra practitioner. So both of this group get on not well at all. And the Tantra practitioner blames to the other group, Vinaya part. So what you're doing is not perfect. And you cannot reach anything. And then Vinaya people said, so what you're doing is not belongs to Buddhism. That's a totally different, it's not pure Buddhism. So that means they cannot join together, put into practice properly and correctly. So therefore, there's a big struggle. So because that, our Tibetan king invited Atisha. By the way, the Atisha means, the name of Atisha means outstanding or eminent. Are found in dictionaries. There's two translations: outstanding or eminent. So, and Atisha came to Tibet and checked very thoroughly how they are practiced, and so on and so forth. At that time, one of the great teacher, great scholar of Tibet was a great translator, Rinchen Sambo. And Rinchen Sambo was a very, very knowledgeable person. And Atisha met him and discussed with him and talked to him. And Atisha asked many questions. And Rinchen Sambo, of course, he can give perfect answers. So therefore, I just said, oh, such a great scholar you Tibetans have here in your country. So why should it be here? So I don't need to come to here. And then later, Atisha was informed that lots of Rinchen Sambo, great translator, built 4 stories, temples. The lower part is the Kriya Tantra. Only all 4 stories are focused on Tantra. Lower part is Kriya Tantra, and the second part is Chaya Tantra, and the third the levels are Yoga Tantra, and fourth is Mahanuttara Yoga Tantra. So she just goes in the morning downstairs and then go back up one by one to practice this. And she was so upset. Oh yes, I need to come here. Even such a great scholar doesn't know practice properly. And Dharma practice, Buddhist practice means all put together for one person on one question, get into the one light or one lifetime to the Buddhahood. That's the perfect way to Buddhist practice. So what you are doing is totally wrong. So then Atisha's disciple, who he was invited, this great translator, great king, requested Atisha, please compose the text for us. The text should not be such a big, long, and very profound, but it's a very practical, how we should to practice Buddhism properly. And then Atisha composed Lamp of the Path to Enlightenment. Changshu Lamdun, he composed that. And while he started to compose, and right at the beginning, Atisha wrote, because of request by my good disciple, I'm writing this. So this is the only time that Atisha named to a disciple as good disciple. The good disciple doesn't mean that because he was a king, because he was rich or whatever, but he asked him simple but very needful, useful text for us Tibetan in order to practice properly. So because of that, Atisha said, good disciple. Unfortunately, during the after several generations, the way of our Tibetan Buddhist practice become a little bit, how should I say, not in, however, we practice not properly, because the Tantra practice becomes so public. So even if you go to the street, you can see so many Tantra scenes, and even you go to temple, there are so many pictures or statues of many different kinds of deities. So therefore, it is a bit. Actually, it's a big problem for us, but it's now too late. But still, it never be late if we try to go back to the origin. Go back to origin. So therefore, Lamrim, the lamp for the path to enlightenment, is basic and very crucial way to explain. Many of you, quite a number of you know about Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So therefore, the name of Lamrim is more or less quite understandable terminology. This Lamrim text is based, all Lamrim texts based on the Atisha Lamrim, which is lamp for the path to enlightenment. And after he written this, he's one of the two important disciples, so-called small translator, Legbe Sherab. Just only 6 verses. Legbe Sherab composed 6 verses of Lamrim. And after that, Legbe Sherab's nephew, so-called great translator, Londe Sherab, wrote a commentary on that, which has about 20 pages. Unfortunately, both of these texts I couldn't find, but I only can see the titles in our literature. But I think it is available in China and Tibet nowadays. But in other countries, I don't think so. But I'm not sure. Maybe they are. So, and on top of that, this London Sheriff's commentary, about 20 pages, was based of the Lamrim, which is one big volume, written by his disciple, Trungpa, his disciple Trungpa. So, excuse me, I need to go back a little bit to the Atisha text. The contents Atisha is just brief instruction of the so-called Kibusum, three kind of persons who have three different kinds of motivations. Limited motivation, with developed motivation, with a very highly developed motivation. There are three kinds of person groups. This name was put together. Of course, this is three persons, terminology of three persons, not introduced only by him, by Atisha, but before that, you can see even in the canon texts, but not so compact, put together. And then Atisha explained a little bit about these three persons, group of three persons, three groups of persons, and then, of course, taking refugees. And after taking refuge, it's explained very nicely about Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And then, after that, Bodhicitta, very extensive. And actually, Atisha text has 68 verses. From 10th verse to 26th verses are only Bodhicitta. Among these, or in this context, within this context, he explained about Guru devotions, so-called good friend. In the ancient time, of course, expressed on the Buddhist teacher quite highly, but not highly as not high as today's. Later, it's become more not remain on the spiritual way of thinking, but it comes also much more social things, such as the teacher sitting on the very high throne, very expensive throne, and so many brocades and so on and so forth. As Buddha himself, when he taught the sutras, we can read even today in the canon, he sat on the stone, or sometimes his disciples put their religious clothes, which is yellow one, put one of the other and made only the sitting place from the disciples' clothes, but nothing, just fancy things. So that was later developed. This is nothing to do with Buddhism, but only Buddhist culture or Tibetan culture. So Tibetan Buddhism, Buddhist practice and Buddhist culture need to be separated, need to be, we need to analyze perfectly actually. So otherwise come too much conflict in our practice. And then after that, of course, 6 professions, and for the Shine, and especially Shine and Lato, which is combined and wisdom, and the emptiness part, wisdom part, is very thoroughly explained from the 46th verses to 58, the many. And then after that, just brief mentioned about Tantra practice. And then also mentioned at that time Tantric teacher, about Tantric teacher. So that's Atisha's way to teach, the order of his Lamrim. And then later, Tolungpa's Lamrim, he put the number 1 is the spiritual teacher. And then it's actually, anyway, number 1 is spiritual teacher, number 2 is the precious human life, number 3 is Buddha nature, number 3 is Buddha nature, and number 4 is more or less samsara. And then after that, impermanence, actually more or less this way. And then, that's right. And then refuges, karma, and loving kindness, and bodhicitta, and 3 kayas, 3 bodies, which are the state of Buddhahood. So that's his way. He changed it a little bit. And then after that, from the great Nyingma master, and he started with precious human existence as the number 1, and then impermanence and disadvantage of being in samsara, and karma, and nirvana, and number 6, last is spiritual teacher. And then, of course, furthermore, refugees. Actually, after the teachers comes the refugee and bodhicitta, and then comes the Tantra. In the Satyabhas tradition, the first is samsara, about experience samsara, and then human precious human life, and then karma, and then loving kindness, and bodhicitta, and at the end, Tantra. So that was the Satyabhas way of approach to the Lamrim. And Tsongkhapa composed great Lamrim Chemo, based on that Trungpa, great translators, Londishir disciple, So that was the base. And actually it's commentary to the Atisha's Lamrim. And he started with so I have sometimes difficult to remember the names and subjects and so on. So Guru devotions and the precious human life and so on and so forth that we in the Guru tradition very vast follow after this Tsongkhapa's order. So, however, my teacher always emphasized all these texts are written. The reader of all these texts are Tibetans, and the Tibetans, majority of Tibetans, I always guess 75% of Tibetans are Buddhist, and the rest is 25%, and maybe about 20% are Pen followers, ancient religions, and there remain 5% Tibetan Muslims, and just very few Tibetan Christians. Sometimes people say 1 or 2% of Tibetan population are Christian. Then the rest of them is Muslim. So therefore, the reader and the writers and the teachers always thinking and understand all audience are Buddhist. So therefore, they can think that all these disciples or audience have very strong faith to the Buddha Dharma. So therefore, they can teach, they can write accordingly. But now the time has changed. Even in Tibetan society, among Tibetan society, not the 75% of Tibetans are not Buddhist. Because of change of our circumstances, so therefore many people many Tibetans became actually, more or less I may say, non-believers. They're not focused either to Buddhism or Pen or Christianity or whichever. So therefore it's for many of them as the so-called religions, nothing important for their life. So why should they struggle to understand this one? So therefore, so we need to change other way around to approach those audience. Not because that we would like to spread Buddha Dharma, but because that we would like to help them to their lives, for their present lives and future lives. And never mind whether they are Tibetans or Chinese or Indians or Nepalese or Europeans. So however, we all have same condition, same position. So that means no one of us want to suffer it. And all of facing and expecting to get happiness. So therefore, in a Buddhist framework, in Buddhist teaching, in Buddhist idea, there are so many subjects that we can give them support. Even you are not only non-believer, but you are also against any kind of religion, but you can explain them that you also need to generate loving kindness just like me. Because if you have loving kindness, it helps you for your life. No one would say, no, I don't want to have loving kindness. Or no one said that I don't want to have happiness. I would prefer to feel suffering. So no one said like this. Therefore, we can say, if you don't like to suffering, so then the method, you must apply a method through which you free from suffering. So if we're talking about this method, not immediately just take a refuge or just recite this and that, just meditate on that. That's not at all the point. The point is, whether you're suffering or whether you're happy, everything's deal with your mind. And which way of your thinking is in your mind now. So therefore, you can see, you can think whether you need to change or not. Because the way of thinking is cause of all our happiness and sufferings. So because of that, so it is important to need to change the approach. And so therefore, I come to these 6 verses, and I had not a very easy time to put all this together. Through the teachings of my teachers, I got enough information, but I need to put in a proper way. So therefore, first I put it like someone else, some other authors. The first homage to the Buddha nature, not instead of to the Buddha or so-called to the Buddha, Bodhisattva, or some of deities or something like that, which are quite common in Tibetan literature, right? So therefore, I put it firstly homage to the Buddha nature. So in the translation, I proceed to the Sugata essence, the seed innate in all living beings that can be developed to become the perfection of abandonment and insight. So this is somehow it's become a bit long, but I can't help it because I would like to express a little bit, or I would like to make it a little bit clear through while they formulated this. So if I said, just I respect to the Buddha nature, so for many people it doesn't say anything. So therefore, what is the Buddha? What is the nature? What's the Buddha nature? So Buddha nature is, if I may say, very short word, ability. ability to become Buddhahood. This ability to become Buddhahood is obtained, or we all possess, all sentient beings possess this kind of a possibility to become sooner or later. Maybe it will take so many aeons. It can also be happen within this short life, or maybe after within some next lives. That's no fixed. Everything is possible. But however, all sentient beings have these possibilities. So now we need to see a little bit thoroughly. What does it mean, possibilities? Possibilities in the sense of the, for example, in Tibetan, the terminology is, Tibetan term is Rik. Rik is, I found in the good translation, good dictionary, natural lineage. Natural lineage. Usually, even for me, just lineages, I understand something else. But this book, this dictionary is composed by the many great scholars together, and also many so many philosophical terms, and so therefore, of course, my knowledge, my English knowledge, not at all enough to understand under the meaning of lineage. Maybe that's right. So, however, and there are two kinds of lineages. One is natural lineage, which is emptiness. Emptiness of mind is natural lineage. So that means we all have same emptiness of our minds. This is one part. Another kind of lineage is the developmental lineage. Developmental lineage means lineage which can be developed, which need to be developed, that which would be developed if I try to develop it. So that means the emptiness part, we don't need to do anything. This is there. But the developmental lineage means we all have a mind. Our mind have many levels of state. Usually that we're dealing with are more or less, how should I say, confused one. Confused one in the sense of mind with so much influenced or only influenced by the concepts. In our level, the mind, or maybe our mind is totally involved, totally influenced, totally ruled by the defilements, which are the concepts. So these concepts, these defilements, need to be recognized as concepts, as defilements. For example, my attachment, my hatred. These are, as long as I don't understand, I don't recognize, this is not good kind of mental disposition. So then I would try to reduce and to remove. It is removable because it's not the nature of mind. It is a temporary problem in our mind. The real mind, which is not possible and no need to be changed in other state, is natural lineage that I mentioned earlier, which is connected, strongly connected with the subtle mind. The subtle mind is actually our real identifications. If I say I, of course, for the time being, people understand it the temporarily, just now, today, and so on. But in fact, I has many, or how should I say, I don't know. There are many possibilities. When I was a child, when I will die, so that means more or less whole life under my I, under the name of I, we included whole of my life. And then we can say, during my last existence, in my next life. So that means we also included other lives. So therefore, I can understand not only this life, but also the past life and the future life. So this combination, that's the three lives are there. The three lives are connected on one I, which is subtle mind. Subtle minds go since beginner's time, as we are calling, as we in the Buddhist philosophical understanding, since beginner's time to the Buddhahood. It goes continuously. My subtle mind was since beginner's time in samsara, and my subtle mind will be developed and reach into the change into the Buddha mind. So this is the developmental lineage. So now next word is I prostate. This, if I may say, this is a strange word. This is a foreign word. This is not Tibetan word. Tibetan word is chak tsel. Chak tsel, two words. Chak means the chak also some mean there are some different meanings. Usually chak firstly understand hands, respect, honorific term. But actually chak means qualities. Tsel means to wish, to get to wish, to obtain. So that means I wish this quality. Chak tsel means I wish this quality. So it doesn't say anything that you are doing something physically or saying something, whatever, right? But you would like to reach the quality of that object. So that means if I chak tsel to the Sugata essence, which is Buddha Buddha nature. So that means I would like to open up or reach openness of Buddha nature. So that's actually message. So therefore, I found this very, very beautiful because we are beginning to reduce our defilements. And so the aim of doing by this, we're aiming to obtain something pure nature of mental state, which is Buddha mind. And some other texts instead of lineage, also saying seeds and element, abilities. There are several words also there. Seeds, of course, it's good, very good. Flower seeds. It's not flower now, but from this seed, if you use it properly, it comes many different kinds of flowers and so on and so forth, right? So therefore, we have this seed. We have, I myself personally like to use ability of Nyuba in Tibetan. Nyuba ability what? To achieve fulfillment or totally developed state of mind. So this is actually important part. So therefore, I put it as first of the homage. So then, actually, the verses start now. Verse number 1 is maybe I can read it's just alone also together. Although tashi ngundu jurungi sabe lyujin kula dembe kam devashibi nyingbo shijawa dela chatsalo. So that was the homage. So now the first verse is tuna dewa chui mintushin droya duwe chage misela. Niji toba shena pominde chini demba tenne droya du. This verse comes from the sutra text. And Buddha himself explained. And I think this verse is actually explained whole complete of Buddha Dhamma. I bow to the Buddhas. This bow is, of course, usually we understand that we respect and bow from physical way, the oral way, and mental way. But the main thing is, I would like to achieve your state, you or Buddha's state. This is also same pattern like before. So Buddha said, the Buddhas will and cannot wash away. Yes, this translation I found very good. With water, the wrong deeds of living beings. Wrong deeds of living beings. These wrong deeds in Tibetan dikpa, And this is many people actually translate sin, S-I-N-N, sin, but according to Buddhist way of thinking, we cannot accept the sin. We can say there's no sin. This kind of terminology. This does not exist in Buddhism. So therefore, our translator, Gavin Kilty, wrote wrong deeds. It's a wonderful, wonderful. And so, recently we saw in TVs that Indians, they have a certain time, religious ceremony, so millions and millions of people get into the river and washing and so on and so forth, right? Such a spiritual bathing or whatever. But in fact, the wrong thoughts, wrong deeds, or cannot wash it up. So otherwise, today's modern time, one can produce one big washing machine, and the people can get into the washing machine and then put some coins and wash it up. It's much easier, and we thought it's also much from hygiene here. Must be much better than get into such a river together so many millions. So therefore, it is maybe our technical. The German country is one of the most advanced country for technical things. Therefore, so they can also maybe think about that. So, and then dispel with their hands. That's right. It's also very, very clear. And the Buddhas cannot remove our bad deeds, our sufferings. Just away, right? They cannot away, cannot move away. And then, or dissolve the hands and suffering, or transfer their insights to others. This is very, very crucial. Actually, this is complete Buddha Dharma is explained here. And this is a really very basic information, very concise and precisely explained. But who liberated by teaching the truth. The Buddha can only give us, tells only the truth. And whether we follow him or not, following him or not, this is up to us. As doctors can only give, analyze and give prescriptions. But we as patients need to take the medicine and follow the doctor's advice. If you don't follow the advice, so then it's quite difficult. Doctor cannot do anything as just look and feel very sad. Actually, all our Buddhist practices can explain only through this one verse. And I always say, as also I mentioned earlier, Buddhism and Buddhist culture need to be divided, need to be separated. And we should understand. Because it's not, maybe it's not possible, but there's, not a problem, but somehow it's a little bit problem, especially from the Tantra rituals. We have wash rituals, and there are so many deities special for the purifications. And then we are blessed, so-called blessed. Bless the water and pour this water on such as sick people to remove their disease as well as whatever. Also mentioned their bad karmas. It's mentioned wordly. The idea is, it is somehow, it's totally wrong, but somehow it was, we can understand as skillful method. In the ancient time, a very early time, the people was very much focused, something ritual, something external things. So therefore, whether it's how much is touched with the truth, it's a different way, it's a different matter. But since they're wishing to be washed, their sins, their disease, and their other obstacles, so they teach us with good motivation, bless the water, and put some water, pour some water on their heads. So through this doing by this ritual, that they're feeling very relieved. And then many of them also see, oh, this now it's fully recovered. This psychological things. In fact, no lamas cannot move. Even Buddhas cannot wash their whatever I said. Yeah, that's right. Buddhas who do not wash away with the water wrong deeds of living beings. This the Buddha himself mentioned very clearly. So therefore, it's a so-called skillful method. Skillful method. If you like, you can say this is not really pure Buddhist practice, but it's skillful practice. And then we have so many methods, even you can find in the canon texts. The later, of course, the Tibetan literature produced so many other ritual texts, and we are also using this constantly. Although it's not really Buddhist practice, but it's a benefit for the people. So the thing is, as my teacher always saying, if we focus so much of the ritual, so much external things, then it's out of the point. It's beyond the Buddhist practice. We only need to focus on in our mind, on our mind, by ourselves. We will remove, we will relieve from the suffering only by thinking and apply certain method in our way of thinking. It doesn't say that we need to meditate also, but carefully thinking, thinking in order to understand the cause of this kind of sufferings. And we have, in order to this, we have such as great Indian teacher Shantidevas, Bodhisattva, whatever, I don't know the title. This text, many of you know, such as chapter 4, 5, 6. These are very, very important to change our mind. And we need to constantly watching in our mind, on our mind, and try to apply some other good method through which we will be overcome from the mental sufferings. If you are free from the mental sufferings, so you will also be free from the physical sufferings. Physical suffering is secondary, and even though if you feel some sufferings, but it wouldn't be a burden so much, or maybe not at all, or less burden. For example, we are also doing, many of us having operations, and to have operations, nothing enjoyment, but we also would like to take risk, that kind of sufferings or inconvenience, right? So because we can see after this doing operation, we will have free from this kind of pain. So therefore, we take risk with great pleasure, with voluntarily. So therefore, we should not expect from the external, from somewhere, some Buddha, Bodhisattva, your teacher, meditation deity, potential deity, whoever, they should help us. Unfortunately, I have no good news, and maybe they can help 10%, I don't know, maybe even less. The technique of doing this is following. We are praying to the Buddhas, means through saying, through thinking of our determination, make us strong, make us stronger. For example, I'm taking refuge to the Dhamma, just saying. But then, not only from the mouth, only verbally, but from your heart. So then, after some time, the saying become the truth. Truth that's really you'll be able to take refuge from your heart. So that means increase your heart, so-called heart power. The heart power is Tibetan terminology, Ning Top, heart power. So through this heart power, you'll be able to neglect your defilements. For example, loving kindness and hatred. Both of these are against, right? If you're really very strong focused on loving kindness, there's no way, there's no room for increase some sort of hatred. Because the object of hatred is your own object of loving kindness. So you're focused on loving kindness to this certain people or certain person or certain group of people. So how can you hatred toward the same object, same person? Either you are being hatred or you're being you have loving kindness. Not both of them together. So therefore, the working process need to be taking place in our mind by ourselves. So therefore, we also have a quotation from this from the sutra. You are the savior for yourself. This is very crucial, very clear message to all of us. So therefore, we need to understand proper, perfect, clean, genuine Buddhist practice. So this is actually main task or main message of this. And then the second verse is Chada Mongbe Niya Chungjimbe Yetish Cheji Pumbe Ne Malu Gansa Chig Chanja Malu Gansa Ching San Jiayi Land Cheve Rimba Chela Zhou. All points of the 84,000 categories of Dharma are for uprooting the mind faults of desire, anger, and ignorance. And I take joy in explaining the stages of bringing them into the path for a single person to attain enlightenment. So I don't think there's any further explanations necessary. So however, whatever the Buddha taught and the other Indian, Tibetan, and of course Chinese and the master from the other countries in the East and in the West. Actually, it's the only method to one person, as written here, for a single person to attain enlightenment. So this is the actually meaning. In this large number of texts explained and give some methods to obtain some higher consciousness, is a way of, how should I say, they're viewing from the different angles. And because of that, different explanations and different emphasizes comes out. Although there are sometimes contradictions, but in fact they are not contradictions. There's no contradictions. So Buddha's teaching, all in all, put in three circles, right? 3 circles. First part, second part, the third part. If we check, there are you can find some contradictions among these teachings. But we need to understand when, to whom, and why Buddha taught this kind of way. So then the answer is, this is another time. This is for another person. This is another occasion or another benefit or meaning or whatever. So therefore, we need to understand this kind of necessities. So next is building building a foundation of ethical conduct, of love and affection as a preliminary to path. I also try to explain or emphasize, it wouldn't work from the deeper level or from the other certain point of view if you just start to meditate this and that things and to recite this and that things without having fundamental position. Our fundamental mental position is, if I may say, strongly damaged since the beginning of time. But we can repair it. So therefore, first, before we are getting into the actual path, actual meditation, so we need to work on the foundation. So if you are building house, first we need to work quite a long time for the fundamental things, right? And whether there are so many stones and the earth, and whether it's really flat or equally ground, or there is some equal. So if there's some it's a slope, you cannot build on that. So you must do you must apply a certain method accordingly. So therefore, first we need to work on our fundamental state. Fundamental state is nothing else as that we usually have. We need to focus on ourselves, and we need to check the way that we are dealing regularly, day by day, is correct or not. So that means, as always emphasized, we as human beings, we have to live in a human society we cannot live isolated. So we must live together. So since we have to live together, so we need to try to see our communication. Without communication to each other, we cannot work, we cannot live in this human society. Not only human society, but also all other sentient beings, including environment. Environment is also very crucial, fundamental base of our livelihood. So therefore, we need to work on that. Whether I have correct communication with this and this and this or not, and then how should I do? Why should I do? So these things is most important. If I go back, if I get into the Buddhist proper practitioner, we're talking about for immeasurable practice. For immeasurable practice, we need to first, before we are doing this, first equality, practice of the equality, and then the happiness and so on. At the end, there's a great equality. This is some difference. But without having equality at all, so we cannot focus on the happiness and sufferings by oneself and by others. So therefore, it's equality is most important. Everything's built up on the equality. So therefore, the way of equality, the way of thinking about equality is the ethical conduct of love and affection as a preliminary to the path. So this, how we should do, how we could do. We can get many answers from the Buddhist literature as well. So therefore, this kind of practice is focusing all sentient beings without differentiation without distinguishing any kind of religion or whatever, or equally for everybody. So that's the actually main base for the further practice of Lamrim. So now time is over, so we can have a break, and in Singapore and China, you can have a dinner. We will have a lunch. So thank you so much.